The aim of this presentation is to describe the relationship between climate change and different planning processes. In South Africa, the Spatial Planning and Land Use Management Act of 2013, or SPLUMA, provides the Legislative Framework Act for all spatial planning and land use management legislation in South Africa. The objectives of SPLUMA include addressing historical spatial imbalances and the integration of sustainable development into land use planning processes. SPLUMA has 5 founding principles. These are spatial justice, considering that past spatial and other development imbalances must be redressed through improved access to the use of land by disadvantaged communities and persons. Spatial sustainability. Spatial planning and land use management systems must promote the principles of socio-economic and environmental sustainability. Efficiency. Land development must optimize the use of existing resources and their accompanying infrastructure. Spatial resilience, securing communities and livelihoods from spatial dimensions of socio-economic and environmental shocks through mitigation and adaptability. Good administration. All spheres of government must ensure an integrated approach to land use and land development. Elements of climate change can be seen in each of these principles. For example, a common response with climate change is densification of communities to minimize risk and vulnerability. However, Principle 2 on spatial sustainability and Principle 4 on spatial resilience talk directly to planning in a way that reduces the negative impacts of climate change on communities. It is not possible to promote the principles of socio-economic and environmental sustainability without responding to climate change. Similarly, it is not possible to support communities to become more resilient without clearly understanding the potential environmental shocks from climate change. SPLUMA also requires national, provincial, and municipal spheres of government to develop and implement a number of plans. These include provincial and regional spatial development frameworks, municipal spatial development frameworks, precinct plans, rural development plans, land reform plans, and other bylaws. These plans are used to articulate the vision you have for your community and the steps that need to be put in place to achieve that vision. The impacts of climate change need to be reflected in these plans to ensure that you respond appropriately to climate change. All of these plans specified by SPLUMA need to adhere to the founding principles of SPLUMA. Climate change, as a result, should be included in each of these spatial planning tools to ensure they are fully compliant with SPLUMA. SPLUMA also has a strong focus on the multi-sector approach of spatial planning. One of the spatial planning's primary roles, is outlined in SPLUMA, is to enhance the integration between sectors such as agriculture, water, housing, and health. Climate change is often cross-sectoral by nature. Many climate change risks and interventions are relevant to a range of sectors. For example, the need for better disaster management strategies during flooding events to avoid waterborne diseases will require integration with health, water, and infrastructure sectors. The multi-sector approach to spatial planning, as outlined in SPLUMA, can therefore assist with climate change planning and implementation. A number of the planning tools specified by SPLUMA are spatial. For example, spatial development frameworks. The purpose of a spatial plan is to outline a desired spatial form for a community and put in place steps to achieve the desired spatial forms. The impact of climate change in a particular community may influence decisions that are made regarding the desired spatial form for the area that the community is located in. For instance, if it's projected that an area may experience more flooding as a result of climate change, it may be necessary to identify zones within a spatial plan that should be developed in order to avoid damage from flooding. To assist with these integration requirements between climate change and spatial planning, the Department of Rural Development and Land Reform have recently revised the guidelines for developing spatial development frameworks. The current guidelines for the development of provincial, regional, and municipal spatial development frameworks and precinct plans, drafted in 2014, highlights the importance of climate change by stating that the planning system is facing up to some of the most important challenges of our time: climate change, economic restructuring, demographic shifts, and housing affordability, as well as deep questions about the nature of our democracy. The guidelines note that spatial planning should be done within 3 substantiative spatial themes. These are the biophysical, socioeconomic, and built environment themes, and climate change is included as part of the biophysical theme. It's therefore important when developing provincial, regional, and local spatial development plans to consider climate change. At the very least, climate change must be considered when elements of the biophysical theme are being developed. For example, a climate change vulnerability assessment should be a key part of the analysis phase of the biophysical theme. However, as climate change is cross-sectoral in nature, it shouldn't only be limited to the biophysical theme. Climate change issues can be included in the built environment and socio-economic themes of the spatial planning processes as well. As can be seen in this presentation, climate change and planning are closely aligned both in terms of the legislative requirements and in the actual planning processes. In the next presentation, we will look more closely at the actual process for integrating climate change into various planning processes.